I'm Don Nystrom, and I'd like to introduce you to Tricia Zunker, who is a Democratic candidate for the 7th Congressional District, which was, as you know, formerly held by Sean Duffy, who retired. The partisan primary is on the 18th of February, and then the survivors of the primary will meet in a special election on May 12th. So we invited Tricia, and she is going to tell us why she's running and a little bit about her background before we have a couple questions for her. So please proceed, Tricia.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for this invitation. I really appreciate it. Yes, I'm Tricia Zunker. I'm Democratic candidate for the 7th Congressional District special election. And just a brief synopsis, I was born and raised in Wausau. I am Ho-Chunk. I'm a member of Ho-Chunk Nation, Ho-Chunk on my dad's side, and come from generations of dairy farmers on my mom's side. I grew up in a strong union household. My mom is a USW Local 2-224 union member, and in fact, I received the United Steelworkers District 2 endorsement of this candidacy just last week. As a child, I was out on the picket lines with her in 1992 when James River was striking for over 2 weeks. I am a first-generation college graduate. I earned a triple major and a certificate in 4 years at University of Wisconsin-Madison. I did that while working 2 jobs, along with assistance from my tribe, financial aid, and scholarships. I then went on to law school. I went to UCLA for law school, and I chose UCLA because of their stellar federal Indian law and tribal legal development program. I wanted to be able to bring that education and experience back to Wisconsin, which is exactly what I did. I was elected in an opportunity of a special election with my tribe for the position of Associate Justice on the Ho-Chunk Supreme Court. I was reelected to that seat in 2017. So I made my way back. I am a solo parent, and after I was elected to my first term, made my way back to Wisconsin along with my young son. First, we were living in Indian Heights, which is a part of Ho-Chunk land down in Wisconsin Dells. And then I made a decision to come back to Wausau. My grandpa, the dairy farmer that I referenced, was in his last years. And I decided that I wanted to bring my son home to be with grandpa in those last years. And it's a decision I am so glad I made because he was called home himself last year. And we got a few years with him. Well, once I returned home to Wausau, my son was just starting kindergarten, and he's in 3rd grade now, but he was just starting kindergarten, and I was alarmed by the child poverty, the food insecurity that exists here. I was really shocked to learn the skyrocketing numbers we have. So I went to my local school board and I advocated for them to do more. But I also decided, instead of just being a vocal citizen, to have a seat at the table and be a decision maker. So I ran for school board. I prevailed in that election, and now I am the school board president for the Wausau School District. And the reason that I'm running for Congress is because I am a qualified individual. I work hard. We have so many issues that need to be addressed. And you'll ask me enough questions that we'll go through them. I won't go through what they are on my end. But I am getting out throughout this district, putting thousands upon thousands of miles on my car and hearing from voters in all the counties. And we really just need representation for the people. And so that's why I'm running. I believe in public service. I have a demonstrated record of serving my communities, whether it's Ho-Chunk Nation or Wausau. I've also been vocal in Wausau as a citizen on other issues, getting Indigenous Peoples Day recognized. I was vocal at all levels of county board when they were debating the Pride Month resolution, which to me was, what's the debate? But I have a demonstrated record, and I'm taking my education and experience and my commitment to public service to the federal level.
Okay, let's get into a few questions. As you well know, our state is now surrounded by other states who have legalized recreational use of marijuana, but yet the federal laws state that marijuana is a controlled substance. So is it time for the federal government to decriminalize pot or not? What do you think?
Well, we can talk about medical marijuana and recreational marijuana. So on the first aspect, medical marijuana, I believe in always coming out on the side of compassion. And if there are people who are sick, or if they have symptoms or reactions to drugs that they have to take because of a health condition, and marijuana will alleviate their discomfort, then the humane thing to do is make sure that they have access to that. So medical marijuana, no brainer, right? That's the compassionate choice. As far as recreational marijuana, I have a unique perspective. I am a published academic. I published an article in 2013 through Northwestern Interdisciplinary Law Review on human rights violations behind bars. There is astounding rates of sexual violence behind bars with inmates, primarily non-violent drug offenders. And a society can be judged on how it treats its inmates, and we as a society are failing in that regard. I say, let's get those individuals out of prisons. They don't need to have a record. They should have a future, and they shouldn't be exposed to what's happening to them. So I support legalization of marijuana, recreational marijuana in certain amounts. And also there is an immense revenue opportunity there as well. You know, we could have farms here in Wisconsin. I was just at an event with Century Insurance on Monday and learning about, you know, the potential clients they could have. But there's lots of opportunities here. And then the taxation, you know, just putting that into our economy. And then just to point out the kind of arbitrariness of the state lines, right? I mean, let's have some uniformity in how this is approached. So it's, yes, absolutely.
Okay. As you well know, there's a major controversy on the status of illegal immigration and the president's determination to build border fences. And, you know, where he gets the money from is in discussion stage 2, some in favor of it, some not. What's your position on illegal immigration?
Well, I have been throughout this district, and I am going into farms, I am going into small businesses, and I see the labor that they have there and their need for labor, jobs that other people don't want to do. I support those individuals being here. We as a society are better with a more diverse society. I support our dreamers. I think that children that were brought here through no fault decision of their own as children, and this is the only home they've ever known, this is their home. So I support a pathway to citizenship for them. We need to have a process because we can't have chaos, but I certainly support a pathway to citizenship. Talk about this border wall, that is just a waste of money. We need to prioritize our spending, and that is one place we do not need to be spending money. And we also need to think about immigration differently. You know, we have these immigration pundits that try to act like we have national security crisis because of people that are fleeing persecution. They're trying to give their children a better life to risking their own lives in the process. That's not our national security threat. Our national security threat is cybersecurity and infiltrating our elections. That's what we need to be focused on. So as far as immigration, you know, I support a pathway to citizenship, and I am glad that our small and mid-sized farmers have the labor that they need.
Okay, moving on. A few weeks ago, the president authorized the killing of an Iranian general, Soleimani, and that was in the news. And some people said, boy, that's good. And others said, oh, no, that's going to cause trouble. What do you think? Did he do the right thing?
Well, Soleimani was a war criminal and a terrorist, and we don't need to mourn his passing. That said, this should have absolutely been a decision made with congressional approval. We should not be taking any reckless actions. We don't know what the response is going to be to this. And I support our servicemen and women being in safe situations, not risking them unnecessarily, which this is. It really is reckless. We just don't know what to think. We need to engage in diplomacy with our allies. You know, we didn't alert them, and we can't just demand them to step up when they weren't consulted in the process. So, you know, the bottom line is that this is something that their congressional approval is required, and it's unfortunate that the 7th Congressional District is without representation at this time.
Okay, is climate change real, and is it a serious problem or a minor problem? Is it a catastrophe about to happen? What do you think?
So climate change, we should actually call it what it is. It's a climate emergency, and we need to deal with it with the urgency that it requires. We need to listen to the scientists. We need to listen to the experts. This is something we don't do enough of. Generally, decision makers in powerful positions need to go to the data. I have a demonstrated record of doing this in my capacity, whether it's going to the law on the Supreme Court of the Ho-Chunk Nation, or my capacity as school board president. What are the numbers? How is this going to affect it? And so that's what the science supports. So we need to ensure that we have clean air, clean water, and that our lands stay protected from corporate greed for generations to come. We need to look into sustainable, renewable energy. We need to take on, fossil fuel industry and figure out how are we going to reduce our carbon footprint. And we see this with big ag too. I mean, the pollution that is occurring, the damage to the water stream, it has to be addressed. And I don't think that we're going to be able to address climate change as effectively as we really can and need to until we have campaign finance reform, because the fossil fuel industry is buying seats that are representatives in Congress. Big ag is buying seats. I don't accept corporate PAC money. I believe that we need to get corporate money out of politics and out of our elections, and that our representatives need to be accountable to the people and only the people.
Okay. I read recently that the federal student debt is over $850 billion, and that there's case after case of students who graduated, have good jobs, and they can't pay off their debt. They're losing ground. Do you think the government should cancel some or all of that student debt?
I graduated law school in 2006, and I am still paying off my student debt. So I know this personally. I think what we need to focus on first and foremost is eliminating predatory lending practices. This is something I have personal experience with. Consolidated loans with the expectation and understanding that because I was doing that, I was going to have a reduction in interest rate, which seemed to save thousands and thousands of dollars. Well, when my loans came out of deferment, I was 10 days late in my first payment, and the bank said, oops, sorry, you never get this interest rate reduction for these 20 years you're going to be paying this. It's things like that. We need to eliminate predatory practices and support our individuals who make the choice to pursue education. We need to make education more affordable and accessible. We need to promote the trades. There's so many good jobs in the trades, in the highly skilled and technical sector. But as far as canceling student debt entirely, I don't know that that's the answer. I don't think that the majority of society is going to support that based on personal decisions they may have made and don't want to feel something imposed on them. Now, there is certainly some argument to be made of that. Well, if people aren't paying their student debt, they're going to be able to put that money into the local economy. So maybe there's a happy medium there, but I don't think the answer is canceling it all.
Okay. The questions aren't getting any easier. we got to talk about healthcare. This program is originating in Marshfield, and as you know, there's pretty large
Sure.
Health insurance industry and medical facilities. So we'd like to know here about your thoughts on healthcare coverage of pre-existing conditions, prescription drugs, and the issues. So what do you think?
Sure. Well, we need to ensure that everybody has accessible, affordable health care. Nobody should die because they can't get the necessary treatment that they need. Nobody should go bankrupt because of their medical situation. So we need to expand the ACA. And I do believe in a robust public option for those that want it. There's a lot of discussion right now about Medicare for all because of the presidential nominees, the Democratic presidential nominees, and I think that's where we are moving to. But I have been out throughout this district, and I'm talking to a lot of voters, Democrat, Independent, Republican, and one thing that I am hearing is there are people that like their insurance. They don't want to feel something is imposed on them. And I'm hearing this also from unions that negotiated very strongly for their health care. And I am a huge union supporter, and I understand that that's something they don't want to lose either. Healthcare decisions are deeply personal, and people need to be empowered in their decision making. And I think if they feel something is imposed on them before they are ready, that's really not leadership. So, as I said, we should focus on expanding the ACA to ensure affordable, accessible healthcare with a robust public option for those who want it. Now, prescription drugs. That is, this is something frustrating. I worked in intellectual property law early in my legal career, and to look at what big pharma is getting away with is just nearly criminal. You know, they are charging us here in America 10 times what they charge that same exact drug or medication in other countries, and they're getting away with it. And you know why they're getting away with it? Because we don't have campaign finance reform. You know, we can keep coming back to that. Big pharma is buying seats in Congress. And so we need to take on big pharma. I support drastically reducing the cost of prescription drugs. You know, we have HR3, which would have been fantastic, lowering the cost of 250 prescription drugs, but it's just sitting on Mitch McConnell's legislative graveyard. So, and pre-existing conditions, yes, people should not be penalized for a pre-existing condition. I myself have had a pre-existing condition for half my life. You know, people, it's not their fault. It's just what happens, and nobody should be penalized for who they are.
Okay, we only have two more for you.
Okay.
We appreciate your time. We'll try to move on quickly. Are you concerned about the national debt, which is $22 trillion and growing, and neither party seems to have any concern about it? Are you concerned? And if you are or aren't, what would your position be?
I am absolutely concerned. We need to ensure fiscal responsibility. The national debt is out of control. There's a couple of things that we can do. Number one, prioritize where we are spending our money. The border wall we talked about a few minutes ago, that's a waste of money. Let's bring our servicemen and women home instead of engaging in these never-ending wars. You know, I have to give credit where credit's due. And when Trump was running for president, that's one thing I liked. He said he was going to bring our servicemen and women home. That's not what's happening, though. We have more leaving. You know, deployments to the Middle East now. But let's get them out of Afghanistan. Let's bring them home and put that money into lowering our debt, building infrastructure that we desperately need, making sure that everybody in the 7th CD has broadband access. I mean, we need to prioritize, generally speaking. Taxing, also, we need to address the taxation system. We need to close the corporate tax loopholes. We have businesses that aren't paying anything in taxes. We can tax them, and they are still going to have immense profit. And we need to make sure that the millionaires and the billionaires pay their fair share in taxes.
Okay. My last question, and then we'll turn it over to you to address anything that we haven't asked, but this is a big one. Gun control, mass shootings, the terrible, terrible instances that have happened at our schools, or religious institutions, and elsewhere. Do you have a solution or a suggestion at least?
Yes, this is just so critical. We must address this. And we're hearing a lot about it here in the 7th CD because people are going around and holding Second Amendment rallies and having county resolutions. And I just want to be clear. I'm a constitutional law professor. I've been teaching constitutional law for well over a decade. A county resolution doesn't trump the Constitution. Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and the Second Amendment exists. So these resolutions are not doing anything except just having an emotional reaction. You know, we could have the same thing for the Fourth Amendment or the Fifth Amendment. But when we talk about gun control, I support the Second Amendment. I believe that people should have a right to defend themselves in their home. I support our hunters being able to hunt. But I am a mom, and I am a school board president, and I see our students having to endure active shooter drills. They are being told, here's what you have to do in case somebody comes in with a gun to shoot and kill you or your teacher. I made it my entire academic career, which is pretty long, without ever having to do one. My son is in 3rd grade, and he's done 7. You know, we're not addressing the real issue here. Instead, traumatizing students unnecessarily, we need to address this with common sense gun legislation. Universal background checks. I don't understand why this is controversial. You know, this is something that we should do. We should also work to ensure that people who should not have access to a gun don't. I have a friend he was orphaned as a child because his mother was going through a mental health crisis and she had access to a gun and she took her life. And if she didn't have that access, her life could have gone on for much longer and my friend's life could look differently than it does today. And so we need to work on that. And also, I believe that weapons designed for warfare have no business in the hands of civilians.
Okay. You've been very kind with your time, and we appreciate that. I'm going to stop asking questions, and if there's any issues that I have not asked you about, this is a time for you to express them. And then if you wouldn't mind, just tell the viewers why they should choose you in the primary, which is going to be on February 18th versus your opponent. Give us your best.
Well, you know, one of the things that we didn't talk about in great detail here is the farm crisis. As the granddaughter of a dairy farmer, when I see what's happening with our farms, our small and mid-sized farms, we need a voice in Congress. The trade wars, the tariffs, they are hurting our farmers here. I've seen that in ginseng farms. I've seen it in dairy farms. There are things that we can do, such as ensuring access to competitive markets, eliminating predatory business practices that hurt our small and mid-sized farmers, ensuring mental health funding so that our farmers have access to mental health. We have a suicide crisis that's happening here in Wisconsin with our farmers. We need to support our small businesses because when we support our small businesses, we support our farmers. And we need to ensure that our farmers have broadband access, and not just our farmers. We need this throughout the 7th CD for everybody. It deprives people of opportunity without it, and also it's a safety issue. So the farm crisis is something that is very important that we need to address, that's very specific here to Wisconsin 7. I will be pushing to get on the egg committee because I believe that we need a strong voice on that committee to directly help our farmers here. You know, there's so many issues. So, you know, I can just generally tell you 3 things about me that in thinking about an issue, if somebody were to say, well, I wonder which side Tricia Zunker would come out on. Here are 3 principles that guide my decision making. Number 1, compassion. Is this the compassionate answer or the compassionate result? Number 2, equality. It doesn't matter what somebody looks like, who they love, or how they identify their gender. Does this legislation protect them equally? And number 3, opportunity. Does this decision result in the most equitable and inclusive opportunity for people to have a chance at success? That one is especially meaningful to me because if you were to look at my life on paper and how I grew up, you wouldn't think that I would be where I am today. I come from very humble beginnings. My parents were very young when I was born, and I seized on opportunities that were presented. So I didn't grow up with privilege by any means, but I recognize that the education and experience I've gained have given me a sort of privilege. And it's my obligation and it's my duty to give back, to speak up for those populations that maybe don't have a voice. And that's why I'm running. I am running because I believe in public service. I have a demonstrated record of public service in my communities. And I hope that people will go to my website, www.triciaforwisconsin.com, can learn more about me and some platforms there. I also have a very active Facebook page. I'm all around the district and constantly updating where I'm at and who I'm with, and just loving getting out and talking to people. And I have Twitter and I have Instagram. And the last thing I'll say is that we just need somebody who's going to get to work. You know, we don't have time for attacks. We don't have time for gridlock. There is so much that needs to be done that we just need people that are committed to being effective and working hard. And that's who I've been my whole life. I am committed to working across the aisle to achieve bipartisan solutions that are going to make life better for us here in Wisconsin. So thank you for your time today. I really enjoyed these questions and enjoyed our conversation.
We appreciate your making the time available. This, incidentally, is the very first remote broadcast or taping that we've ever done. So,
Oh, wonderful.
and I hope it worked out for you. Thank you so much for your time, and good luck in the election, which is going to be the primary February 18th.
That's right.
Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you so much.